Well, good morning and welcome to this first teaching session on this year's long weekend away. You'll already know that this year we're going to be looking at Revelation chapters 12 to 14 and the first few verses of Revelation chapter 15. But the way that we're going to approach that this year is slightly different. Each morning we're going to come together and I'm going to begin with a 5-minute introduction to set the morning up. Then I'm going to send you away for the next 20 minutes or so to do some work on Revelation for yourself. You'll see from your weekend away booklets that I've included some reading notes to help you to make the most of those 20 minutes. But really what I want you to do is just to read Revelation carefully. I'm really excited about this. Revelation is a book that lots of us will find scary and a bit intimidating, but I'm convinced that the thing about Revelation is that if you read it and you read it thoughtfully, you can begin to understand it. It doesn't take that much reading. You can read the whole book in a little over an hour. And so we're going to spend 20 minutes working at the book for ourselves. Then we're going to come back together. I'll give a talk for 20 minutes or so this morning, chapters 12 and 13, tomorrow, chapter 14. And then we'll break into discussion groups for the next half an hour or so after that to begin to think through the implications of the book. Then we'll have a cup of coffee, and then after that we'll have an hour or so within our own homes reflecting and discussing further before we come back together for the last half an hour of the morning to pray things through. That's the plan. I think you ought to have the timetable included in your weekend away booklets. And if you're sitting very comfortably, then I think we're ready to begin. And the question that I want to begin this little series in this year is this. What is now for? What is now for? It's a question that for the first time in a little while, a lot of people are suddenly asking. You see, all the things that make for normal life, going to work, going to the pub, taking your children to see their grandparents or to the ballet class, talking about the football or the cricket, going to a coffee shop to read the newspaper, going to church on a Sunday morning. All of those things have been put on hold. And normally we just go through the motions. We live our routines, don't we? But at the moment, most of the things that fit into our normal routines, well, we can't do them. And it raises the question, what is now for? What is now for? I've heard people suggest a number of answers. Some people have said that now is for reconnecting with our nuclear families, which sounds like an excellent idea for those of us, of course, who live with our nuclear families when we're not driving one another up the walls. Others have said that now ought to be a time for national self-reflection, but it isn't entirely clear what we're supposed to be reflecting upon. Others have obviously argued that now is the time for saving and for protecting the NHS, which really does sound like a great idea. But of course, for most of us, that's a fairly passive pursuit. And so what do we do with the rest of our time? What is now for? Well, to answer that question this morning and tomorrow, we're going to be turning to the book of Revelation and to the central and the pivotal chapters, Revelation 12 to 14. And that might surprise you. You might think that Revelation is not a book about now. Revelation is a book that is all about the far-off future. And of course, there's a sense in which that's true. Revelation ends with the cataclysmic intervention of the Lord God Almighty at the end of history as he turns the world upside down, or perhaps better, he puts the world back the right way up. Revelation certainly ends with the end. But actually most of Revelation, certainly the first 14 chapters, is about now. You see, the most extraordinary thing has happened. 2,000 years ago, the end of the world arrived. The final judge, the Lord Jesus, he stepped onto the page of history. The books began to be opened. The way that Revelation chapter 6 puts it, the stars began to fall from heaven. The mountains began to crumble. The The heavens were rolling up like a scroll. And then just at the moment when everything was about to collapse, 4 angels stepped in to hold the world together for just a little while longer. So far, approximately 2,000 years. God pressed the pause button on the end of history. We live a millisecond from the end of all things. He just needs to press the button and it would all stop. And it raises the question, why the delay? The central question that Revelation 12 to 14 addresses is this question: what is that now? That delay, our now, what is it for? Why is the end of the world on hold? Well, John, in his book, he comes at the question 3 times from 3 slightly different angles, in what commentators like to call the interludes. It's the pause between the 6th and the 7th seal, or between the 6th and the 7th trumpet, the pause before the 7 bowls that mark the final judgment in Revelation chapter 15. The interlude, or I suppose you might say the delay, the time when the 4 angels are suspending the whole universe in suspended animation as final judgment is about to arrive. But God holds off for just a little while longer. And we get a glimpse of the answer. What is that time for? A glimpse in chapter 7 and a longer look in chapters 10 and 11. But the hard focused stare, well, that comes in Revelation chapters 12 to 14. Today, we're going to look at chapters 12 and 13, and we're going to think about what now is basically like. And then tomorrow, we'll focus in Revelation chapter 14 and think a bit more about what God wants us to do with this time. What is now for? But that's quite enough from me. I'll see you in about 20 minutes. For now, I want you to do some work on Revelation 12 and 13 to get into these chapters, to read them carefully, and maybe to think about this question. What is now, this time? What is it like? I'll see you in about 20 minutes.